And our first presentation is what do handicrafts and programming have in common? And you are welcome, if you please, to go outside on your smartphone or whatever and listen in. So I'd like to introduce Senja.
Thank you, James. And also for me, like, welcome to Tech Weeklies. And like James said, this is an audio first and mobile first presentation. So I had the idea that if the weather is good, you can go outside and enjoy a beer or a picnic. And if you happen to be watching the YouTube presentation of this later in the future, and you're on your mobile, don't worry, all the fonts are really big, so you can see all the text here that I have. Okay, my speech is about what handicrafts and knitting have in common. They have a lot in common, more than you guessed, more than you guess. And I'm going to be, of course, talking about the similarities. There are, of course, differences, but we're focusing on the similarities. First, a few words about who I am. At Futurice, I'm a front-end developer. I also have a design background. I have been programming or doing programming on a professional level for 4 years now. And on my free time, I am a very, very enthusiast handicraft hobbyist. I do all types of things, but mostly knitting and sewing. And here in this picture, I am knitting outside, like below the cherry blossom trees when they're blooming. And I have been doing handicrafts on a personal level or like as a hobbyist for over 20 years now. You might be asking yourself and me, like, why this talk or topic? And there are many reasons. Most of them are personal, but in general, I would say that technology and programming are the new lingua franca. You have to use and you have to understand technology when you live in this world. And we also, like, I'm guessing that most of you who are watching or listening are developers, and therefore you know that currently we have, like, internationally, we have a huge demand for developers, especially senior developers who know what they're doing. But also junior level developers, because you have to be a junior before you can grow into a senior position. And many people around the world are currently asking the question of how to get new people, a diverse set of people interested and started in programming, either on a hobby or a professional level. So I know that this is it's on my mind and it's on everybody else's minds. And like my answer to this question, or one part of the answer is that we get new people interested and like quickly started by teaching them programming using examples from something that they already know. Because when we make comparisons like, you know, this thing, well, this new thing that you're learning is kind of like this. It just makes you so much more quicker, like understand, okay, this is what it's about, this is why we do it, and frees like your cognitive capacity to get working on some other stuff. But also like a personal reason why I'm having this talk is that when I had to learn programming, I was a 16-year-old teenager. I went to a special high school that had a math and physics and computer science emphasis, and it was compulsory the first year to start programming Java. And when I was nervous about learning programming, I got many comments like, "Nah, you're good at math. Like, I'm sure you can learn programming. It will be easy for you." And of course, when I heard it the first time, I was like, "Phew, okay, wow, yeah, I guess I'm good. Like, yeah, makes sense. I'm like, give it to me. Like, I want to learn." But the further I went into programming, I didn't see a lot of evidence supporting this hypothesis, and I still haven't seen that many things. So my version of this is that if you're good at handicrafts, you can learn programming. And I feel like if somebody had done a presentation like this when I was 16 years old and learning stuff, it would have got me started so much faster. So if you, dear listener, are trying to explain your job or this hobby of yours to your child, your spouse, your relative, or somebody else who you know that they know handicrafts, here are some tips, maybe how you can try to explain to them what it is that you're doing. And there are just so many common things. So I have a lot of material in this presentation. I hope that I go into the 30-minute time slot that I have here. But like something to keep in mind when you listen to my presentation, I know, as I mentioned in my intro, that there is like there's the hobbyist and there's also the professional level, both in handicrafts and like programming or software development. I have built this presentation as a sort of agnostic of these two. So of course I know that these two levels are here, but all of the things that I mentioned are present in both. And we of course know that on a professional level, you do things much more rigorously when you get paid to do something that somebody else is using, and it's just not a hobby project for yourself to enjoy. Okay. Today's agenda, I'm going to be talking about the development process itself, and the number here in brackets is the amount of slides that I have about it. And then we're going to move on to materials. You might not think that programming has materials, but I'm referring to language and tech stack and libraries here. Then we're shortly going to look at the learning process, and also, if we have time, a bit of the social aspects of both of these things. But development process. Whenever you start making a bigger project, whether it's a online banking service or a huge ball gown or wedding dress, the way to go about things is like smartly is to divide and conquer. So nobody starts anything without taking like a look on a like higher level, like what do we have here? What do we want? Breaking it down to features and requirements. Okay, we want this kinds of sleeves and this kind of a hem. Okay, we want offline first functionality, and also like, I don't know, good emphasis on styling or beautiful visuals. And we might also think about the order of the implementation, like, okay, if we do this first, then we can test out this one, or these can be done simultaneously because they don't have dependencies on each other. And then by this sort of thinking, you can move on to choosing the materials that you're going to make this thing out of. I have 4 things here. Some might not be so obvious from the software engineering point of view, but we'll see how you feel about these. First of all, we think about the suitability. So if I want to make a waterproof jacket, which I use in running and hiking, and I don't know, when I'm moving around in the forest, it probably doesn't make sense to like put some lace or I don't know, like embellishments on the jacket, even though I would really like it. And I could, like, in theory and in practice, I could make lace or whatever waterproof, but it just doesn't, it's not suitable. It's not durable. It will get stuck in branches and weird things. Doesn't make sense. Also, I'm happy if somebody tells me that they want to build web app front end with Python, but I don't think that it's suitable for this. Like, you need to look at some other things when you're making your project. The next thing is availability. So this is maybe the part, like in software development, you might be like, what are you talking about? But like, if somebody has managed to install COBOL on the machine, then we can talk availability, because like the modern languages are so readily available. We can download them. They're either pre-installed into our computers, or we can just download them with a few lines on the terminal. It's not an issue, really. But in handicrafts, like, I totally feel the pain of not being able to get my hands on some fabric or yarn that is readily available in the States, but then having to ship it to Finland, of all places. It's a bit tricky. We also look at documentation. So like when we have decided that the material is like suitable, it's available, we want to see what other people are saying about its use and also what the manufacturer is saying. So browsing through documentation and like blog post experiences, how was this for this kind of project? All very natural in both of these handicrafts and programming. The fourth one is maintenance. Okay, if I want to use the certain wool silk fabric for my nice office trousers, but then I realized that, I have to, it's not hand washable, it's not machine washable, I have to get it to the dry cleaners for cleaning. Maybe not the best pick. Like I want to be able to hand wash it myself. Also, even if COBOL was suitable, available, and magically enough, you had enough documentation, like if there are no other people, like developers who will be maintaining it after you are not in the project or the team, not maybe the best choice. Now, once you have chosen the materials or the stack that you're going to be working with, you will be moving on to prototyping. And here I found two levels in both of today's topics. The first one is a smaller level, which I call swatches and hello world level. And this is like, you basically make the smallest possible piece of for like that you're testing sort of the materials and the tools that you have. You're sanity checking like that you have the right needles, that you have the yarn, thread for your sewing machine, or the correct needles that for that fabric that before you start making something bigger. Same with Hello World programs. You download the material, the stack, you make something small appear on the screen or wherever, and that's a sanity check that okay, now I have everything functioning before you make something bigger. And believe me, well, I don't know, do developers do this often? I think that the Hello World culture is so like prominent that when you're learning a new language, you're not doing this type of mistakes. But I know so many knitters who do not make swatches when they start working with a new yarn. And then they are like in the knitting meetups or forums, they're like, I have knitted the sweater like 5 times and every time I have to frog it, unravel it, start all over again. And I'm just like, why didn't you make a swatch? This would have saved you so much time. Another level, a higher level that I identified as a muslin or an MVP. Muslin is a type of fabric, but also if you Google muslin sewing, you will get good examples of what muslins, like muslin prototypes, might look like. So they are usually done for testing the size of this like item that you're making. It's made in a similar fabric or materials that you will be using in the final product. But usually it's done from a cheaper material and discardable material. So the muslin is something that you sort of get the, you test the hypothesis pretty much the same way with the minimal viable product. You have something like a few features that you want to test out, put out to actual users, and then you will get either like, yes, let's go forward, or no, this was a fail, like let's change and do something else. Then once we have prototyped, we have our ducks in a row, we can start the final project. We have some kind of failure control mechanisms. And here I have only one bullet point, but in reality, there are so many examples that I couldn't fit it into the slide. And usually they were so deep in the handicraft knowledge that I think I would have overdid my time here, but I'm just going to put it like this. So you have fittings or some other kind of tests in handicrafts, and yeah, and software engineering, we have all kinds of tests. These are not maybe like unit level tests. These are more like acceptance tests or end-to-end tests that we have. Then let's talk about the materials. And by now, I hope the materials and like software engineering, you understand that I'm talking about languages here. Abstraction levels, such a true thing. And I just threw them out here. So usually the level that we work with is the second one here. So either like working with the readily made material, like in knitting, you're working with yarn, or on programming, you're writing code. But we all know that there is a lower abstraction level, or more like a lower abstraction levels, that we're aware of them, but we are not like tinkering with them. We just have outsourced it. Like we know that it's there and we trust that it works, does its job. And you usually start also from the second level, like knitting with yarn or writing code, and then you move on to the higher levels as your skills become more advanced. And the next level, funnily enough, is the same in both domains. So design patterns in handicrafts and design patterns in programming. And a lot of examples here, but I wrote down a raglan sweater. This is, if you don't know, Google it. It will tell you that it's a type of cut for sleeves. And the sweater, it's just, okay, it could have been a raglan shirt as well. And in like programming, we have like singleton pattern or an observer subject pattern. The list goes on. Even a higher level is like fashion styles or different eras, and maybe like in programming paradigms, or these also have, like, we could say them fashion eras, because, well, you must know that, yeah, some languages and paradigms trend, and then we sort of come back a full circle, like maybe 50 or 10 years later. Then still about materials, I wanted to talk a bit about the front and the back end, because this is a photo that has been haunting me on the internet. This is from Programmer Humor Reddit, and I like this photo. I don't know who made it. I would like to know who made it and compliment them. But I have to say that I agree with one commenter who says, it's more like front-end UI and front-end code than actual front-end and back-end. And I have to say, I fully agree with them, not because everybody's front-end code is as messy as the back-end photo here, but because in like my mind, like true front and back-end are something different. You might not think, and we don't use this term in handicrafts, but I think that there's a front-end in handicrafts in some projects as well. But they have to be complex enough to have that kind of backend. So I would define a front end in handicrafts as something that is seen by the user or users. Duh. It is similar as in programming, but I mean like fashion fabrics, like the right side. We would talk like in clothing terms, like the right side of things. And then the back end is a supportive system or structure that the front end needs in order to function the way it's designed to function. The ladies in the audience, if you have worn very like big hemmed, I don't know, wedding dress or a ball gown, you know that there is a supportive structure that gives the hem its volume. So there are hoops. There's an actual like undergarment skirt that you put on, and then you just the funny flashy fashion fabric. It's just the front end put on top. The front end itself cannot uphold that kind of amount of volume in that dress. So that's one example. Also like corsets, or come to think of it, I had a fun project at home that I have made, which is a very developer familiar, character. And I happen to have the actual toy here with me. In the YouTube presentation, you cannot see my camera, but like the colleagues at Futurice in the present moment, you can see that I have this cat with me here. This toy is very light, so I measured it. This Octocat weighs about 99 grams. And like, of course, everybody here can see the front end. This is made of felted wool, brown wool, with some then like glued on, I don't know what this is in English, but other type of material. And you see the front end, but do you have any idea what's inside? Like what is making this kitten or Octocat the way that it is. Like it has the one of the tentacles is here on the right side, and you wouldn't know, but I'm gonna spoil it to you here. So the backend solution in this case is foam plastic, which is so light and therefore it's suitable as a toy. And the legs here have inside pipe cleaner. You can also Google that if you don't know what it is, but it's a material used in like paper crafts that kids do. So this is another example of a front and back end, but don't go ask any handicraft enthusiast, like, what is the back end solution on this dress that you're wearing? They won't understand you. I'm sorry. Okay. Since I'm on schedule, we can talk still about the learning path, or the learning process, I should say. And in the beginning, everybody uses tutorials, especially, or even if like your primary school or like other education has handicrafts or programming, you're still like heavily relying on tutorials, and it's fine. Like everybody uses them, but you know, like my recommendation is that hobbyism gets you far. So like if you're interested in either subject, just keep practicing and doing projects on your free time. That's the best way to learn. Like learning by doing. Also, no one demands an official degree or education on these things. Like I do have a higher education degree. That's sort of like 1/3 of it is computer science, but nobody has asked about it in interviews. When I have applied for jobs, they mostly want to see my like not even a LinkedIn profile, but a GitHub profile. And like the same goes in handicrafts. I feel like in some way I would be wasting my time if I had a degree from like a fashion school. It would be interesting to see the materials and things that they teach there, but still nobody demands it. They just want to see what you have done. And it's common to find like professionals and highly like valued individuals who are pros on both fields who don't have an official degree. Learning one language or technique, and like learn it well, and then the next one is easier. So I would say like in handicrafts, if you know knitting, crochet is easy. Like sewing is a bit different, but hey, you can make it because the process is the same. I would say that these like meta level skills are the same. It's just the syntax. It's just availability of the materials, bits and pieces there. And I think that the same applies for programming. So the first one is maybe, of course, the hardest, but then you will start learning. Like just go along with it. This last thing is a bit of a dinosaur of the past, I feel, at least in handicraft scene. So I put down master and apprentice relationships. This is a model or a way of teaching, a form of education that used to be prominent, like in the maybe, I don't know, first 1,500 years of our existence. But I think it's extinct currently because our like education system has sort of mass-produced materials that are there's only one teacher per like 30 or 40 students in a classroom. So this type of one-on-one teaching and learning relationships are extinct. But I feel like as a handicraft enthusiast and as a programmer, it's always a great pleasure and a privilege to see someone who is more senior than you are and like be able to watch when they're working and maybe ask them a few questions like, hey, why did you do this? How did you do it? Could you show me again so that I can learn? So please, like, if you have a chance to learn from somebody who you admire, just use this. It happens in small pieces and like moments. For example, in code reviews or in courses that you might take in handicrafts. Then the social aspects of both of these domains. Very similar again. We have a lot of handicrafts festivals and tech conferences. Nothing to say here, except maybe that if you didn't know that there are, for example, in Finland, there are a few sewing festivals and one knitting festival. They're real people, like travel for them, and they are usually 2 to 4 days events, just like tech conferences. Also, a bit more local happenings that we have are either knit night or sew nights, which are pretty similar to LAN parties. So people carry their computers or their handicraft projects. We sit down, we have some drinks and food and talk about what we're doing. Then on the digital world, we have social media platforms that are for people to connect and share their work. In handicraft scene, a few names. There are not so many, but Ravelry and Textilia are the biggest ones. On the tech side, of course, we have GitHub and GitLab, and these have very similar features, like what you have done, maybe some memos for yourself. Also, handicraft, like social media services, have forums for asking questions. Of course, like tech scene has Stack Overflow or other forums for that purpose. Thank you so much for your attention. I think that I have used my time. So if you have any questions, please post them. If you're a Futurice colleague, post them in Slack, or if you're a YouTube viewer, post them in the comments below. And if you want to see more stuff from me combining handicrafts and programming, you can follow me on Instagram as knit_to_code. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Senja, for your presentation.